so happy we're finally doing this. Welcome.
Hello, Will. Thank you for inviting me to this amazing cabin for some candid fireside conversation. I'm ready to tackle some foundational questions with you.
Before we get started, I wanted to first give a word of caution to our viewers. These conversations explore specific ideas from the Jewish perspective and are intended as a conversation starter with clear, direct, and simple explanations for the curious Christian acquaintance. This is a friendly conversation.
Good point. You are absolutely correct. These are not meant to be used as an attack. On the contrary, these conversations should be approached in mutual love and respect in a calm and relaxed environment.
Chaim, my Jewish friend, this fireside conversation reminds me of the passage in Zechariah 8:23, which tells us, "So said the Lord of hosts, in those days when 10 men of all the languages of the nations shall take hold of the hem of a Jewish man, saying, Let us go with you, for we have heard that God is with you."
I'm proud to be part of the Jewish people, but honestly, brother, without amazing Nochites like yourself and the other seekers of righteousness that are watching with us, we wouldn't be having this conversation. It is our responsibility as Jews to be a light unto the nations, not as a hammer. As Isaiah 42:6 explains, "I am the Lord. I called you with righteousness, and I will strengthen your hand. And I formed you, and I made for you a people's covenant, for a light to the nations."
Today's question is about how the Jewish Bible is different from the Christian one. I have heard that the Jews have a two-part Bible, a written Bible called the Torah, and an oral Bible called the Talmud. How is that different from the Old and New Testament?
The original authentic Bible that was given to Moses at Mount Sinai is known as the Torah, or the 5 books of Moses. It is so much more than a history book. It serves as an instruction manual and reminder of the covenant that was forged between God and the Jewish people. Contained within its sacred words are the records of my family's inheritance, histories, national certificates of marriage, death, and divorce. It is our recipe book, genealogy, living will, and the mutual promise of national revelation and the sworn testimony of my people. At Sinai, we ratified this covenant, sealing our place for eternity as children of God and elevating our family to that of models and servants to the rest of the world. And in fact, that is the very reason that you and I are having this conversation today.
Wow, as a former Christian, I thought it was just a book that had history and prophecies that, I was told, were progressive revelations that pointed to Jesus.
It is my family's scrapbook, so we Jews don't see it as some antiquated history book with prophecies pointing to a future Messiah that would come, only to promise to come back later, never having fulfilled our future prophecies. What good would that serve my suffering people under the crushing weight of Rome? But I digress. To clarify, it does contain my family's history, but as you mentioned earlier, the Torah of my people has 2 parts. One is the written, legal documentation.
Like birth certificates, marriage documents, and legal wills, that kind of thing?
Yes, the physical copies of the legally binding documents. And believe it or not, many of these are contained within the written Torah, the 5 books of Moses, and Nach, the prophets and other writings of the Jewish canon. These are collectively called the Tanakh, or the Jewish Bible. It is what Christians call the Old Testament, but to the Jewish people, the words of God will never become old. They remain as timeless and relevant to us, the eternal nation for whom it was written.
What is the purpose of an oral counterpart? What could that add, except legalism and human error?
The written Torah itself is like a Cliff Notes version, or news headlines, of the relevant details of God's will to be honored in perpetuity. As Moses learned directly from God, he received explanations of everything and wrote down the headings as permanent reminders of the topics and subject matter he had received. The written Torah is a sealed book that cannot be added to, nor removed from. Its laws are absolute. The definitions are often intentionally left vague to prompt questions and reminders. So you need the Oral Torah in order to properly understand what God presented and preserved in the written Torah.
So can you give me some more details of the Oral Torah, the Talmud? I always heard that it was the legalism that was spoken about in the New Testament.
We don't see it as legalism at all. The second part of our Jewish family history is the oral complement known as the Mishnah, which means repeated study. After it was collected and eventually written down, it became known as the Talmud. It is filled with household traditions as taught by the elders of my family, beginning with Moses at Sinai and handed down orally to the elders, who handed it down to the people. This is precisely how Moses received the totality of the Torah on Mount Sinai.
So you are saying that without the two pieces together, written and oral, the totality of God's will could not be realized as Moses received it.
Correct. The Torah is the written and spoken work of God to Moses for us. It differs from the Old Testament in that it cannot be made obsolete through any future revelation. The revelation was given in its entirety to the Jewish nation at Sinai.
So to summarize, to the Jewish people, the 5 books of Moses given at Mount Sinai, Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy, are collectively called the written Torah. The explanations, definitions, and practical applications of the written Torah are found in the Oral Torah, referred to as the Mishnah and the Talmud. Without them both, a complete understanding and application become impossible for the Jewish people, but together represent the totality of God's will as he presented it to Moses.
Next week, let's discuss why Jews don't utilize the Christian New Testament as a continuation of our Torah.
That sounds great. I have a few questions of my own on that topic. Now go out there, do good deeds, and let's bring peace to the world. Shalom. Oh, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Thank you.
For you Jewish people, for you people who don't understand Christians, you don't understand why it's so difficult for Christians to let go. Because they love Jesus. That's how Christians are put to bed at night. Jesus loves you. You're going to go to heaven if you believe in Jesus. And if you question Jesus, you question the doctrine of the Trinity, you're going to hell. You're going to burn in hell forever.